In the twilight hours of the Cretaceous period, long before the final cataclysm that would wipe the slate of life nearly clean, the Earth was not only ruled by the giants of tooth and claw. Instead, vast forests, floodplains, and inland river systems echoed with the footsteps and calls of some of the most majestic and misunderstood creatures ever to roam the planet: hadrosaurs. These gentle herbivores, often called duck-billed dinosaurs, represented a crown jewel in the evolutionary saga of plant-eating dinosaurs. Thriving in massive herds and spread across multiple continents, they were symbols of balance in a world filled with danger. Despite their size, they lived without the need for fangs or armored plates. Their defense was their unity, their awareness, and the complex vocalizations that echoed through ancient valleys. Among the most iconic of these was Edmontosaurus. Stretching over 12 meters in length, it was a giant of its time. But its strength was not in speed or aggression. Instead, it was in numbers. Edmontosaurus lived in herds that could stretch as far as the eye could see, moving in rhythm through forests of towering conifers and across meadows of ferns and flowering plants. Its broad, flat snout worked like a natural harvesting tool. With hundreds of tightly packed teeth forming a dental battery, Edmontosaurus could chew tough plant material with surprising efficiency. It grazed like a prehistoric cow, its beak snipping and slicing, its tongue shifting plant matter into position for grinding. And yet, despite this mechanical prowess, it moved with quiet grace, a creature in harmony with its environment. The land it roamed was not static. In the west of what is now North America, shifting rivers carved through ancient floodplains. Seasonal rains flooded lowlands and dry seasons cracked the earth. Edmontosaurus adapted to it all, migrating in coordinated movements to find food, water, and safety. Fossil evidence of trackways shows entire communities moving together, from the smallest juveniles to the largest adults. They left behind prints as wide as dinner plates, frozen in time, a testimony to the social nature of these giants. But Edmontosaurus was only one thread in the hadrosaur tapestry. In the warmer, more humid regions further south, along what may have been coastal wetlands or swamp-like estuaries, lived Magnapolia. It shared many traits with its northern cousin, but carried a different grace. Its longer tail and taller frame suggested a semi-aquatic lifestyle, and its fossils have been found in what were once marshy deltas and ancient riverbeds. Magnapolia likely spent much of its time near water, perhaps even using it as a refuge from predators. With its long digits and possible webbing between its toes, it might have walked on soft ground where others would sink. It fed on aquatic vegetation, ferns, horsetails, and flowering plants that grew in abundance along the water's edge. What set Magnapolia apart, however, was its possible vocalization capabilities. While not as well known as Parasaurolophus for sound production, its nasal structure hints at the potential for communication through resonance. It's easy to imagine entire herds gently calling across wide floodplains, their sounds vibrating through the warm air, like echoes of an ancient language now lost. And then, in the forests where the sun filtered through tall trees and mist hung low over the undergrowth, stood Parasaurolophus. Few dinosaurs are as instantly recognizable. Its long, backward curving crest, sometimes over 6 feet in length, made it one of the most visually striking creatures of its time. But the crest was more than just decoration. It was an instrument. Inside the crest were hollow tubes, a maze of nasal passages that could amplify sound. Scientists believe Parasaurolophus used these structures to produce low-frequency calls that could travel vast distances. Perhaps they called to mates, warned of predators, or kept track of herd members in dense forests. The sound would have been haunting, like a wind instrument moaning across the land, a prehistoric symphony. Parasaurolophus, though slightly smaller than Edmontosaurus, held a different elegance. It moved with a proud gait, balancing its long body with a strong tail and scanning its surroundings with keen eyes. It fed on the same type of vegetation as other hadrosaurs, but preferred areas where it could browse as well as graze. It likely stood on two legs when necessary, reaching for higher foliage, and dropped to all fours to walk or feed at ground level. Despite their differences, these hadrosaurs shared a connection, a social structure and a way of life that revolved around community. Fossilized nesting sites show that hadrosaurs, particularly species like Maiasaura, returned to the same grounds year after year. Though Maiasaura itself may not appear in this landscape, its behaviors inform us about hadrosaur family dynamics in general. Eggs were laid in carefully dug nests, sometimes clustered closely together in massive colonies. Hatchlings were born helpless and needed care. This parental investment suggests a level of empathy and nurturing rarely associated with dinosaurs. The bond between adults and young may have been reinforced through sound, smell, and sight. Calls between mother and offspring, low and musical, may have filled the nesting grounds. In a world dominated by teeth and terror, hadrosaurs thrived not through fear, but through community. Their herds moved like rivers of life, flowing through landscapes teeming with other creatures. Horned dinosaurs like triceratops, armored ankylosaurs, swift raptors, and towering tyrannosaurs. And yet, it was the hadrosaurs who were most abundant, the true commoners of the Cretaceous. In their skin were patterns for camouflage and display. Some may have had stripes, others blotches or gradients that helped them blend into their surroundings. Fossil evidence of skin impressions reveals pebbly textures, not too different from the scales of modern reptiles. And perhaps, in species like Magnapolia or Parasaurolophus, there were flashes of color, subtle iridescence, or bright tones used during mating seasons or dominance rituals. During migration, thousands may have traveled together across shifting terrain. Some would fall to illness, injury, or predation. But the herd moved on, shaped by memory, instinct, and an unspoken trust in each other. Predators lurked at the edges, tyrannosaurs with bone-crushing jaws, dromaeosaurs stalking from the underbrush. But even they hesitated to attack an organized, alert herd. Sometimes, Edmontosaurus adults may have formed a protective circle around the young when a predator approached. Others may have taken turns sleeping, always with lookouts nearby. These behavioral glimpses hint at a level of intelligence and awareness often underestimated. And while they were silent in death, the fossil record speaks volumes. The bone beds of hadrosaurs span continents. From the badlands of Montana to the cliffs of Patagonia, their remains paint a picture of dominance not through violence, but through resilience. And now, millions of years later, their echoes remain. In the wind through pine trees, in the hush of wetlands, and in the quiet strength of creatures that seek not to rule, but to coexist. They are gone, yes, but their legacy lingers in every bird that sings, every herd that moves together, and every parent that protects its young. The hadrosaurs were not the fiercest nor the fastest, but they were magnificent. And in their extinction, the Earth lost more than just giants. It lost harmony. And so we begin our journey, not with monsters or myths, but with creatures so beautiful, so peaceful, that their absence is felt even today. This was their world, their time, and for a fleeting moment in the deep past, they ruled it with grace. In the heart of the late Cretaceous, where the rivers shimmered under golden light and forests teemed with dragonflies the size of falcons, there lived a group of creatures so graceful and unassuming that their presence felt like poetry in motion. These were not beasts of terror or armored tanks of survival. They were slender-necked, water-loving birds that bore a resemblance not to the fearsome theropods from which they descended, but to the serene elegance of swans. These were the halscaraptors. Unlike many of their cousins who stalked the land with claws and teeth, halscaraptors were creatures of water, trees, and tranquility. Their fossils, exquisitely preserved, were first unearthed in what is now Mongolia, a land that, in their time, was part of a lush, semi-aquatic ecosystem filled with streams, deltas, and shaded woodlands. It was a place of soft sounds, gentle flows, and life that pulsed more with rhythm than with roar. At first glance, Halscaraptor might have seemed like a paradox. Its body was small, not more than the size of a goose, and it stood lightly on two legs. Its neck, long and flexible, curved in elegant loops like a dancer's arm, and its arms, unlike the grasping wing-like limbs of its cousins, were elongated and structured in a way that suggested not flight, but swimming. Webbed digits, flattened bones, and strong muscle attachments all pointed to one thing. This was a dinosaur that paddled. In the calm shallows, Halscaraptor moved with fluid precision. Like a modern grebe or cormorant, it likely slipped beneath the surface in search of small fish and crustaceans, its narrow jaws snapping with surgical accuracy. Its teeth, fine and evenly spaced, formed a natural trap for slippery prey. Its eyes, set slightly forward, gave it binocular vision, perfect for tracking movement underwater. But it was not a predator in the traditional sense. There was no brute force in its hunt, no chase through the trees or tearing of flesh. Halscaraptor fed with quiet efficiency, its presence more akin to that of a heron than a hawk. In a world where survival often meant size, speed, or savagery, it relied instead on grace. The world it inhabited was one of contrasts, wet and dry, open and hidden. Willow-like trees lined riverbanks, their roots tangled in the mud. Flowering plants bloomed along the shores, and insects flitted in the dappled light. Other animals came and went, ankylosaurs moving like tanks through the underbrush, small mammals scurrying in the leaf litter, and larger dinosaurs trampling paths into the forest. But Halscaraptor was not built for confrontation. Its body spoke of evasion and subtlety. It slipped through narrow gaps in vegetation, dove into ponds at the slightest sign of danger, and relied on camouflage to blend into reeds and shadows. Its feathers, yes, it was feathered, were likely soft, waterproof, and beautifully patterned. Hints of iridescence may have glinted in the sun, or perhaps it bore muted earth tones to stay hidden from predators. Its lineage is one of irony. Descended from the same raptorial stock that gave rise to dromaeosaurs like Velociraptor, Halscaraptor chose a different path. It turned away from the violence of the hunt and embraced a life of peace and precision. This evolutionary divergence paints a richer picture of dinosaur diversity, one that includes not just monsters, but marvels. Perhaps the most touching aspect of Halscaraptor's life was its likely behavior outside of hunting. Like many modern birds, it may have lived in pairs or small family groups. Its small size, delicate build, and semi-aquatic nature would have made isolation dangerous. Safety, warmth, and survival would come through cooperation. Imagine, for a moment, a pair of Halscaraptors nesting near a quiet stream. They gather twigs and plant matter, weaving a nest among the reeds. Their calls, gentle musical chirps, carry through the early morning mist. One keeps watch while the other hunts, and when the eggs arrive, both take turns incubating. Hatchlings emerge with wide eyes and downy feathers, their tiny limbs already eager to mimic the motions of their parents. There is a poetry to such life. It reminds us that not all dinosaurs were creatures of fury and might. Some were delicate, nurturing, and astonishingly modern in their habits. Halscaraptor, more than many, bridges the gap between ancient and familiar. It whispers the secrets of evolution, of paths not often taken. In the fossilized bones of Halscaraptor, we see a story of change, a story that defies expectations. Here was a theropod, a cousin of the great killers, that became a swimmer, a fisher, a wader. It rejected the stereotype and instead embodied balance. Its extinction is more than a loss of a species. It is the loss of a perspective, a way of being in the world that was quiet, deliberate, and serene. Had it survived, one wonders what further forms it might have taken. Would it have taken to the skies like its avian descendants? Would it have adapted to new wetlands as the continents shifted and climates changed? But fate had other plans. The impact event that ended the reign of the dinosaurs did not discriminate between the mighty and the meek. And so, Halscaraptor disappeared, its watery trails vanishing into history. Yet its story remains. A fossilized skeleton, curled in repose, tells us that beauty once swam through Cretaceous rivers. A creature with the heart of a bird and the soul of a dancer. And in that story, we find wonder. Because sometimes, the most magnificent creatures are not the ones that roar the loudest, but the ones that simply lived in quiet splendor. In the sun-drenched meadows of the late Cretaceous, where ferns unfurled like living lace and streams traced glittering ribbons across the land, a small and elegant creature wandered in quiet contemplation. It did not tower like a sauropod, nor thunder across the plains like a ceratopsian. Instead, it moved with the gentleness of a leaf on the wind, its presence more akin to a whisper than a roar. This was the Parasaurolophus, a name that may not stir the imagination like Tyrannosaurus or Triceratops, but a name that deserves to be remembered. Parasaurolophus was not large. It stood no taller than a medium-sized dog and stretched perhaps 2 meters from nose to tail. But in its smallness was a kind of magic. Its limbs were long and slender, built for agility and grace. Its eyes were large and bright, positioned to offer a broad view of its surroundings, a necessity for one who must always be watchful, but who wished to avoid conflict rather than confront it. Its body was covered in skin that may have borne soft proto-feathers or smooth-scaled patterns in muted greens and browns, allowing it to melt into the underbrush with ease. The Cretaceous world was no place for the slow or the flashy unless one was armored or armed. And Parasaurolophus, with neither horns nor claws nor fangs, relied on speed and subtlety. As a member of the ornithopods, Parasaurolophus belonged to a lineage of herbivores that had evolved to graze, browse, and move constantly. Its beak was sharp and well suited for nipping tender vegetation, young ferns, low-growing shrubs, perhaps even the earliest flowering plants that had begun to spread across the land. Its teeth, arranged in neat rows, worked like shears to crop and chew its meals with quiet efficiency. In the early mornings, as fog lifted from the grasslands, small herds of Parasaurolophus may have emerged from their hidden resting places to feed. They moved together, not in great numbers, but in familial bands. Parents, offspring, perhaps even older siblings, all watchful and bonded by instinct. Their communication may have been subtle, soft chirps, tail gestures, and rhythmic foot taps on the forest floor. Their world was rich, both in life and in peril. Towering hadrosaurs fed on treetop foliage, while armored nodosaurs clattered through the undergrowth. Predators were never far. Troodontids with gleaming eyes, dromaeosaurs with sickle claws poised in silence. And of course, the shadow of the great tyrannosaurids loomed like storm clouds. But Parasaurolophus did not challenge these threats. Instead, it lived around them. Its senses were keen. It could detect the faintest vibrations, the sudden hush of birds overhead, the scent of disturbed ferns. In an instant, it could dart away, legs blurring in a sprint that zigzagged through trees and between roots. It could leap over logs, vanish into thickets, and reappear only when danger had passed. It is easy to overlook such a creature in the grand tale of the Cretaceous. There were no bones of immense size or horns to mount on museum walls. But what it lacked in grandeur, it made up for in presence. It was a survivor, a wanderer, and a symbol of balance in a time often remembered only for its extremes. In the dry season, when water grew scarce and the heat shimmered across cracked soil, Parasaurolophus adapted. It drank in the early morning dew, fed on roots and tougher vegetation, and retreated to shaded glades during the hottest hours. Its small size allowed it to exploit resources others ignored, and its mobility let it travel great distances when needed. And when the rains returned, the world transformed. Flowers blossomed, insects buzzed in clouds, and the chorus of amphibians filled the night. Parasaurolophus too thrived in this cycle, raising its young in the safety of tall grasses, teaching them the roots of safety, the flavors of edible plants, and the signs of danger. To imagine a young Parasaurolophus is to imagine innocence, downy, bright-eyed, full of curiosity. It would follow its mother, mimicking her movements, learning to forage, to flee, to listen. Perhaps it played in the stream beds, splashing in the shallows, or chased insects among the flowers. Its life, though simple, was filled with moments of joy and wonder. Parasaurolophus reminds us that not all of evolution's triumphs roar. Some chirp, some nibble, some simply endure. And while many of its contemporaries fought and fell in dramatic battles for dominance, Parasaurolophus endured quietly, beautifully, in harmony with its world. The extinction that eventually claimed it did so indiscriminately. Fire rained from the sky, darkness blanketed the earth, and the plants it relied on withered. In such times, speed and grace were no longer enough, and yet its lineage lived on, not in direct descendants, but in the philosophy it represented. For every tyrant king, there was a gentle grazer. For every battle, a moment of peace. The bones of Parasaurolophus are light, fragile, easily broken, but they speak loudly. They tell of a time when elegance mattered, when the small had a place, and when life could be lived not in dominance, but in peace. And so we remember this creature, not for its size, but for its spirit. In the Cretaceous garden, it walked with quiet dignity, leaving footprints no deeper than the petals it brushed aside. And though it is gone, the memory of its gentle journey lingers, a soft echo in the prehistoric wind. Beneath the towering conifers of the late Cretaceous, and beside the quiet banks of ancient rivers, a creature unlike any other moved with the grace of a water dancer. It was not the largest, nor the most famous, but it may have been among the most curious and beautiful. Dinosaurs, its name meaning terrible hand, had once stirred fear in the hearts of paleontologists who uncovered only its massive clawed forelimbs. But when the rest of its body was finally revealed, it told a story not of a monster, but of one of the most unusual and gentle giants to ever roam the earth. Dinosaurs stood as tall as a giraffe and measured nearly 11 meters from its broad, duck-like bill to the end of its fan-shaped tail. It belonged to a group called ornithomimosaurs, the ostrich-like dinosaurs. Yet Deinocheirus was unlike any of its sleek, swift cousins. Its body was massive and humped, with stout legs that moved steadily rather than swiftly. It had wide hips, strong limbs, and a bizarre sail-like ridge along its back, formed by elongated neural spines. But most remarkable of all was its face, long, flat, and graceful, ending in a beak that seemed designed for peaceful foraging. In this prehistoric Eden, Deinocheirus lived not by the sword, but by the stillness of water. It was a browser and a grazer, a forager of aquatic plants and soft land vegetation. Its large beak could scoop up mouthfuls of water weeds, filtering out nutritious greens and small invertebrates, much like today's ducks or geese gastroliths. Stones found in its fossilized stomach helped grind this plant material, turning the lush vegetation of its riverine habitat into sustenance for its massive body. Deinocheirus was gentle not just in diet, but in nature. It may have moved in loose, solitary paths or perhaps in calm, familial groups, wandering from one bend of the river to the next. Its immense arms, once feared to be instruments of destruction, likely helped it forage or pull down branches, not unlike the powerful limbs of a modern sloth bear. Its strange body would have stood out even among the diverse cast of the Cretaceous. From afar, it might have looked like a blend of many creatures: a duck's beak, a camel's hump, a giant's hands, and an ostrich's neck. But up close, Deinocheirus would have revealed a creature entirely its own, an evolutionary mosaic built for balance, for survival, and perhaps even for beauty. The wetlands it called home would have teemed with life. Turtles sunned themselves on fallen logs, insects buzzed over lilies, fish darted beneath the surface, disturbed only by Deinocheirus's shadow as it waded through the shallows. The air was humid, heavy with the scent of moss and flowering plants. And in the heart of it all, Deinocheirus moved in quiet procession, like a priest of an ancient world. Its sail may have served many purposes. Perhaps it helped with thermoregulation, releasing excess heat into the air. Or maybe it was for display, an advertisement to other Deinocheirus, signaling health, strength, or readiness to mate. Whatever its purpose, it added to the animal's silhouette, making it look even more fantastical beneath the rising Cretaceous sun. Deinocheirus had few enemies. Its sheer size and strange form may have puzzled would-be predators. Even the fearsome Tarbosaurus, a relative of Tyrannosaurus rex, would have thought twice before challenging such an imposing figure. And yet, Deinocheirus did not rely on violence or intimidation. It relied on presence, on patience, on peace. In the rainy season, when rivers swelled and the forest pulsed with new life, Deinocheirus would have thrived. It could feed for hours in the flooded meadows, surrounded by the calls of distant dinosaurs and the rustling of the wind in tall grasses. It may have even migrated with the changing tides, following the cycles of abundance that defined its world. Its reproductive life, while lost to time, may have mirrored that of other large dinosaurs. Massive nests dug into soft earth, guarded with gentle care. Hatchlings, born small and vulnerable, would have followed their mother's enormous footsteps, learning to forage, to wade, to survive. A line of tiny Deinocheirus trailing behind a giant parent is a vision that defies extinction, a symbol of continuity and gentleness in a wild, ancient land. To watch Deinocheirus today would be to witness living poetry, every movement slow and deliberate, every glance a reminder that evolution does not only craft predators and warriors, it also gives rise to guardians, grazers, and dancers. The fossilized remains of this creature were once a mystery, a pair of arms that seemed to belong to a predator. But science, with its tireless hands, eventually revealed the truth. Deinocheirus was not a nightmare, but a marvel. A reminder that beauty often hides behind our assumptions, that nature, in its vast imagination, can paint creatures of such complexity that they defy all expectations. As the Cretaceous neared its end and the sky darkened with the ash of an oncoming apocalypse, Deinocheirus, like many others, vanished. The rivers slowed, the plants withered, and the peace of the wetlands gave way to silence. Yet the legacy of this gentle giant endures. In every fossilized bone, in every reconstructed model, and in every young mind that dreams of dinosaurs, not as monsters, but as wonders. Deinocheirus, with its enormous hands and quiet grace, walked not in fear or fury, but in harmony. It was not just a creature of the Cretaceous. It was a masterpiece of life's gentler side, a chapter of prehistory that asks us not to marvel at might, but to cherish gentleness. And so, in this story of prehistoric planet, we remember Deinocheirus not as a beast of nightmares, but as a dream in daylight, harmless, magnificent, and gone too soon. In the vast Cretaceous meadows where the horizon met endless seas of ferns and low-lying palms, an unusually beautiful creature moved with the serenity of a forest breeze. Towering over its surroundings with a gentle gaze and a posture as noble as an old oak, was one of the largest hadrosaurs to ever grace the earth, Shantungosaurus. Unlike the fearsome predators or the armor-clad behemoths of its time, Shantungosaurus was a creature of peace and presence. It did not hunt. It did not hide behind plates or spikes. It lived by its size, its social intelligence, and its quiet grace. Stretching over 15 meters in length and weighing over 13 tons, it was a marvel of herbivorous engineering. Yet for all its enormity, there was something ethereal in its shape, something almost tranquil in the way it moved through its Cretaceous Eden. Its head bore no horns, no armor, only a wide, flattened beak perfect for cropping the abundant greenery that surrounded its domain. Rows of tightly packed teeth behind that beak formed a perfect chewing platform, a biological mill capable of processing the toughest vegetation. Shantungosaurus didn't just eat, it refined. And in the act of feeding, it sustained the forests, clearing underbrush and cycling nutrients, shaping the very world it walked in. It moved in herds, great flowing collectives of mothers, juveniles, and elders, migrating across open floodplains and river valleys. They were guardians of the land, shaping it not with claws or teeth, but with sheer presence. To witness such a herd cresting a hill at dawn would have been like watching a wave of green life moving under the golden sun. Shantungosaurus was a hadrosaur, or duck-billed dinosaur, and among the most impressive of its family. Its long tail counterbalancing its powerful torso swayed with each step. It could walk on two legs when necessary, especially in its youth, but in adulthood, it often lumbered on all fours, distributing its immense weight evenly. Its feet left wide, deep impressions in the mud, signatures of its passing that would one day harden into fossils, whispering stories across eons. There was no violence in its manner, no signs of an aggressive life. Predators may have roamed its world, tyrannosaurs, dromaeosaurs, and other carnivores, but Shantungosaurus relied not on confrontation, but on the unity of the herd. When threatened, the adults would close ranks, encircling the young. Their sheer size, combined with their numbers, often dissuaded even the boldest hunter. Its eyes, large and set on the sides of its skull, gave it a panoramic view of its environment. It was a creature ever aware, of its herd, its surroundings, the motion of clouds above, the whisper of insects below. Its hearing was likely keen, and its voice, amplified by chambers in its skull, may have resonated across long distances. Perhaps it called to others at dusk, singing low, sonorous tones that echoed between the trees. The forests it inhabited were lush, vibrant ecosystems, humming with the life of an ancient world. Cycads and flowering plants blanketed the earth, while primitive birds darted through the canopy. Insects buzzed in the warm Cretaceous air, and in the middle of it all, the Shantungosaurus moved like a living monument, a creature of elegance and endurance. Scientists believe it lived during the very end of the Cretaceous period, just before the asteroid impact that ended the age of dinosaurs. This makes Shantungosaurus one of the last and greatest expressions of its kind. In it, evolution poured countless generations of adaptation, refining a creature that needed no weapons, no armor, only cooperation and calm to survive. It might have bathed in shallow rivers, letting water cool its enormous body. It might have lingered under trees at midday, shaded by the foliage of Cretaceous giants, and at dusk. It might have lifted its head to watch the sun slip below the horizon, the skies painted in colors it could not name, but surely knew by rhythm and instinct. There is something deeply human in how we view this creature. Its lifestyle, family-oriented, community-driven, peaceful, mirrors ideals we often strive for. Perhaps that is why its extinction feels especially poignant. Not because it was lost in battle or outcompeted by a stronger rival, but because the world simply changed. The sky darkened, the plants died, and even giants, even herds 1,000 strong, could not endure. Fossils of Shantungosaurus today lie embedded in the earth of modern-day China. Entire bone beds have been uncovered, silent cities of bones where herds once thrived. Their skeletons stretch across meters of ancient rock, preserved in repose, as if still traveling through time. Through these remains, we reconstruct not only the anatomy, but the heart of the animal. It's in these bones that we find its legacy, not in tooth or claw, but in the breadth of its body, the curve of its spine, the wear on its teeth. They tell of an animal that lived not fast and fierce, but long and gentle. A creature that roamed with purpose, raised its young, and shaped its world through care rather than control. To imagine Shantungosaurus alive today is to see a creature both foreign and familiar. It would move like a procession through a primeval park, casting shadows like moving trees, chewing slowly, blinking patiently. It would not flee. It would not fight. It would simply be an embodiment of peace in a time of thunder. So in this chronicle of prehistoric planet, we do not just remember the fierce, the strange, or the armored. We also remember the gentle, the grazers, the silent stewards. We remember Shantungosaurus, garden giant of the Cretaceous, vanished monarch of meadows, a creature of impossible size and even greater serenity. It is a reminder that not all greatness roars. Some simply walk beneath the sun, guiding the earth beneath their feet into bloom. In the early Cretaceous landscapes of what is now South America, a truly graceful and otherworldly creature once roamed the river valleys and forest edges. This was Amargasaurus, a sauropod unlike any other, a creature of soft temperament and strange beauty. It was not the largest of its kin, not even close, but it was among the most distinctive, and in its quiet way, it has etched its silhouette into the memory of prehistoric life like a delicate fossil pressed into stone. Amargasaurus stood out for the extraordinary double row of tall spines rising from its neck and back. Each spine was long and narrow, some stretching nearly as tall as its own head. These spines, likely connected by a thin layer of skin or covered in keratin, may have formed an elegant sail or twin crests, creating a visual display like no other animal on Earth. It is possible they were used for display, to signal health, maturity, or social status to others. Some scientists even imagine they shimmered in hues of red and orange, catching the dawn light as the creature grazed the plains. Unlike the colossal Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus of the Jurassic period, Amargasaurus was compact and low-built, about 10 meters in length. This smaller stature allowed it to maneuver through the denser forests of its Cretaceous home. It did not tower above the canopy, but rather moved through it, delicately browsing on ferns, cycads, and other low-lying plants. It was a master of the understory, its long neck allowing it to reach foliage others ignored, and its peg-like teeth specialized for stripping vegetation with quiet precision. Its body was built for balance. Its legs, sturdy and strong, bore the weight of its long torso and tail with ease. Its tail likely served as a counterbalance, swaying gently as it walked, helping it maintain steady footing across the uneven ground. The animal moved not with the thunderous steps of a giant, but with the calm, deliberate motion of a being perfectly attuned to its world. Amargasaurus likely lived in small herds, perhaps family groups led by experienced matriarchs. These groups would have offered safety in numbers, comfort in companionship, and guidance for the young. Though the spines on its back might have deterred predators, its true defense was in community, in vigilance, and in its choice of habitat. The forests it inhabited provided cover, and the rivers offered both nourishment and protection. In its world, predators like abelisaurids, short-snouted carnivores with powerful jaws, might have stalked the shadows. But Amargasaurus had no need for confrontation. Its alert eyes, elevated by a long neck, scanned its surroundings constantly. If danger approached, the herd could retreat into thicker woods, or the adults could form a protective barrier around the calves. There was no panic, only practiced response, a rhythm honed through generations. What we know of Amargasaurus comes from the fossilized remains found in Argentina, where a nearly complete skeleton was unearthed. It tells the story of an animal that was both bizarre and beautiful, with a body designed not for battle, but for life in harmony with its environment. Its vertebrae, with those iconic spines, speak of evolutionary creativity, a departure from the standard sauropod form. It is as if nature paused for a moment and painted a creature with delicate brushstrokes rather than broad sweeps. Perhaps the most intriguing mystery of Amargasaurus is the exact nature of its spines. Did they carry sail-like membranes that caught the wind like banners in a prehistoric breeze? Did they thrum with sound or vibration, perhaps used in low-frequency communication with others of its kind? Or were they simply ornaments, natural art in a world of function? Whatever their purpose, the spines did not signify aggression. They were not used to attack or defend in a violent sense. They were, in essence, statements, expressions of identity, of presence. In a world where survival often meant teeth and claw, Amargasaurus thrived through quiet dignity and gentle form. In life, it likely enjoyed the company of other herbivores, iguanodonts, rebbachisaurids, and smaller creatures that shared the same fertile valleys. Insects hummed in the dense air, while early flowering plants began to spread across the landscape. Small mammals scurried beneath the leaf litter, and primitive birds took to the skies. Amargasaurus was part of this intricate web, moving with the seasons, drinking from ancient streams, and leaving deep footprints in the soft earth. To see Amargasaurus alive would have been to witness the surreal. it would appear almost mythical. Its back alight with morning sun, its posture calm, its gaze focused, yet untroubled. It was a dinosaur that did not conform to expectations. Not a colossus, not a warrior, but a walker of forests, a bearer of sails. It lived during a time of transition when new species were emerging and ecosystems were in flux. The world was warmer, wetter, and filled with possibilities. Amargasaurus was a symbol of this time, adaptable, unique, and subtly powerful. Its extinction, like that of many others, came not from failure or weakness, but from the changing tides of time. Climates shifted, continents drifted, and eventually the curtain fell on its chapter. But in the fossil record, in the grooves of ancient bones and the silhouette of its spined back, Amargasaurus continues to inspire wonder. We remember Amargasaurus not just for its anatomy, but for its message. It reminds us that nature is not always brutal, not always about dominance. Sometimes the most striking figures are those that live quietly, shape their world gently, and leave behind a legacy not of conquest, but of beauty. In this age where so much is loud and fast, Amargasaurus stands as a silent figure from the past, an emblem of balance, grace, and the peaceful majesty of life that once was. It is a creature we are sorry to have lost, not just because it is gone, but because it represented a kind of life we now see so rarely. Gentle, strange, and unshakably serene. In the sun-drenched woodlands of Cretaceous Australia, where conifer forests mingled with fern plains and seasonal rivers, flowed gently through vast floodplains, a creature of striking elegance once roamed. It was Muttaburrasaurus, an herbivore both charismatic and unusual, known not for its size or fearsome features, but for a distinctive nasal crest and a life lived in harmony with its landscape. Today, it stands among the most iconic of Australia's prehistoric fauna, a gentle animal whose form and behaviour evoke the calmness of a world long lost. Muttaburrasaurus was a medium-sized ornithopod, measuring about 7 meters in length and weighing roughly 2 to 3 tons. Its build was solid, yet agile, with powerful hind legs built for walking or running on 2 feet, and shorter forelimbs that could help in steady browsing or even quadrupedal movement. Its long, stiff tail served as a counterbalance, helping it maintain posture and control as it navigated its semi-open woodland home. But what set Muttaburrasaurus apart was its head. The skull featured a large, hollow, bony swelling on its snout, a structure that has fascinated paleontologists since its discovery. This crest may have had multiple functions. Some believe it was used to produce sounds, perhaps resonating like a wind instrument to communicate across distances, warning of danger, or calling to mates. Others suggest it may have served for display, helping individuals recognize one another or demonstrate maturity and health. Whatever its purpose, the crest gave Muttaburrasaurus a unique profile, a mark of distinction among the peaceful herbivores of its time. Its teeth were specialized for processing plant material. Unlike the advanced hadrosaurs that came later, Muttaburrasaurus had strong shearing teeth, ideal for slicing through tough vegetation like cycads, horsetails, and conifers. It likely fed in groups, moving together as a community through the ever-shifting seasons, browsing the undergrowth and contributing to the ecosystem by dispersing seeds and maintaining plant diversity. Muttaburrasaurus lived in an Australia that was very different from today, positioned closer to Antarctica and covered in lush greenery. The region experienced extended periods of daylight and darkness due to its high latitude position during the Cretaceous. Despite the harsh seasonal shifts, Muttaburrasaurus thrived, showing that it was highly adaptable and well-suited for a variety of climates. Life in its world was dynamic. freshwater crocodiles lurked in river shallows, while large predatory theropods such as Australorhynata might have stalked the forests. Yet Muttaburrasaurus was not defenseless. Its strength lay in vigilance, in numbers, and in its agility. Its large eyes were positioned for excellent vision, and its alert nature meant that threats were often spotted early. When danger appeared, the herd could flee with surprising speed, the thundering rhythm of their retreat echoing across the forest floor. Juveniles were likely nurtured by the group, kept in the center of moving herds where they were safest. These young ones, with smaller crests and wide, curious eyes, would have learned the ways of their kind through observation and imitation, how to feed, how to listen for warning calls, and how to navigate the complex terrain of their world. Parenting may not have been as involved as in mammals or birds today, but care was evident in the structure of their lives. The fossils of Muttaburrasaurus were first discovered in Queensland, Australia, near the town of Muttaburra, from which it gets its name. The discovery was significant not only for its completeness, but also because it offered a glimpse into a unique Australian lineage of dinosaurs, creatures that evolved in isolation and developed distinctive traits. Today, Muttaburrasaurus remains a symbol of Australia's deep past, a reminder that even in the far corners of the world, dinosaur life flourished with stunning variety. To imagine Muttaburrasaurus in motion is to see a scene of prehistoric grace. Early morning mists rise from the cool earth as a small herd grazes near the edge of a slow-moving stream. Sunlight filters through towering pines, dappling the patterned skin of the dinosaurs as they move in silence. Their crests catch the light, their eyes calm and aware. There is no panic here, no chaos, only the serenity of life unfolding as it has for millions of years. Muttaburrasaurus did not roar or battle or dominate. It simply lived, thrived even, in a world of quiet complexity. Its presence helped shape the land, its behavior wove it into the fabric of its ecosystem, and in its bones, preserved for eons in the red rock of the outback, we find a story not of conquest, but of coexistence. Perhaps that is what makes Muttaburrasaurus so memorable, not just its nasal crest or its Australian heritage, but its emblematic role as a peaceful participant in an ancient world. It did not seek attention, but earned it through its distinctiveness. It did not inspire fear, but left behind fascination. As we study its remains and reconstruct its life, we are reminded of a time when beauty and complexity existed without violence, when the earth was ruled not only by giants and hunters, but by the quietly extraordinary. Muttaburrasaurus is a creature we are sorry to have lost, not for what it did, but for what it represented, a moment in evolution where subtlety thrived and harmony prevailed. In the wetlands and floodplains of late Cretaceous Mongolia, a bizarre and majestic figure once roamed, one so strange that its fossils baffled paleontologists for decades. Towering over the landscape with a duck-like bill, massive arms ending in long claws, and a humped sail adorning its back, Deinocheirus was unlike any other dinosaur. For years, only its massive forelimbs were known, but even then they hinted at a creature both formidable and mysterious. Today, with more complete fossils discovered, we now understand that Deinocheirus was not a fearsome predator, but a gentle giant, a peaceful and oddly beautiful herbivore that defied expectations. Measuring over 11 meters long and weighing as much as 6 tons, Deinocheirus mirificus, its name meaning terrible hand, was an ornithomimosaur, part of the same family that includes the smaller, ostrich-like Gallimimus. But unlike its swift, slender cousins, Deinocheirus was bulky and slow-moving, more akin to a living tank than a sprinter. Its massive clawed forearms stretched over 2.4 meters long and were once thought to belong to a monstrous carnivore. Instead, they were tools for foraging, used to pull down vegetation or dig through soft sediment for roots and aquatic plants. The head of Deinocheirus was flat and elongated, reminiscent of a giant duck's bill. This unusual skull shape suggests a specialized feeding strategy, allowing it to sweep through water and mud in search of soft plants, invertebrates, or even fish. It had a beak instead of teeth, and likely consumed a mixed diet, making it an omnivore. Its stomach contents, found fossilized, revealed plant material and fish remains, reinforcing the idea that Deinocheirus was not strictly herbivorous, but adapted to whatever food its environment provided. One of the most striking features of Deinocheirus was the sail or hump on its back, formed by elongated neural spines. This structure may have helped regulate body temperature, stored fat reserves, or simply served as a visual display, perhaps to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Whatever its function, it added to the animal's otherworldly appearance, making it one of the most visually unique dinosaurs ever discovered. Deinocheirus lived in a rich and dynamic ecosystem. The landscape was dotted with rivers, lakes, and marshes, supporting a wide variety of life. Its defense was not speed or aggression, but its sheer bulk and presence. Few predators would risk challenging such a strange, towering creature, especially when it moved in herds. Deinocheirus's beak and possible tongue structure may have allowed it to filter feed, similar to ducks or flamingos, sifting through aquatic vegetation and small prey. This feeding strategy was rare among large dinosaurs and highlights how Deinocheirus carved out a unique niche in its environment. Rather than competing directly with large herbivores or swift omnivores, it embraced a hybrid role, part browser, part sifter, part wanderer. Juveniles likely remained close to adults for protection. Their crests and humps developed with age, and their early lives were spent learning how to feed, move, and navigate the challenges of their marshy home. The community structure may have been loose but cooperative, with individuals staying within visual or auditory contact. Their vocalizations, if they existed, were likely low and resonant, suited for communication across long distances in open environments. It's rare for an animal so unusual to be so gentle, yet Deinocheirus embodies this contrast. It had the hands of a monster, the gait of a giant, and the bill of a duck. But its lifestyle was peaceful, its diet largely plant-based, and its presence likely a calming one in the ecosystem. It did not fight for dominance. It simply endured, thrived, and adapted. We are sorry Deinocheirus went extinct, not just because of its uniqueness, but because of what it represented. A moment when nature experimented boldly, and peace came not through power, but through balance. Deinocheirus teaches us to look beyond appearances, to seek the truth beneath the mystery. It is a testament to how patience and discovery can reveal beauty in the unexpected. In the warm, lush lowlands of the late Cretaceous, among rivers and forests teeming with prehistoric life, there walked a creature of exceptional grace and tranquility, Parasaurolophus, a gentle herbivore with a long, backward-curving crest atop its head, moved through its world in quiet dignity. It was not a predator, nor armored like an ankylosaur, nor a towering giant like some of its sauropod cousins. Instead, it relied on its senses, intelligence, and the companionship of its herd. This dinosaur was not just beautiful to look at, it may have also sounded beautiful, producing haunting, resonant calls that echoed across ancient landscapes. It is a creature we are truly sorry to have lost. Parasaurolophus lived around 76 to 73 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period, and its fossils have been found in what is now North America, particularly in regions of modern-day Canada and the United States. As part of the hadrosaurid or duck-billed dinosaur family, it shared features with other plant-eating dinosaurs, such as a broad, flattened snout and tightly packed rows of teeth suited for grinding tough vegetation. But what set it apart was its stunning tube-shaped crest that arched backward in a smooth, elegant curve, making it one of the most visually recognizable dinosaurs in history. This crest wasn't just for display. Inside, it contained an intricate system of hollow chambers connected to the nasal passages. Scientists believe it worked much like the tubing of a wind instrument, perhaps allowing Parasaurolophus to produce deep, resonant sounds. These calls could have carried for miles, allowing herd members to stay in contact across vast stretches of forest or open floodplain. The sounds were likely used to identify individuals, communicate warnings, or strengthen social bonds. In this way, Parasaurolophus was not just a silent figure of grace, but a voice in the chorus of its ancient world. Its name, Parasaurolophus, means near-crested lizard, and although that sounds like an understatement, it reflects early attempts to classify it among its duck-billed relatives, measuring around 10 meters long and weighing over 2.5 tons. It was a sizable creature, but not intimidating. Its limbs were strong and built for both bipedal and quadrupedal movement, allowing it to graze on low vegetation or rear up to reach taller plants. Its tail, stiffened by interlocking tendons, helped balance its long body and supported agile turns if it needed to move quickly. Unlike many of the more famous carnivorous dinosaurs, Parasaurolophus did not rely on teeth or claws to survive. Instead, its defense was awareness, speed, and the safety of numbers. Living in herds likely offered protection, as predators would find it difficult to isolate and attack a single individual among dozens of others. Their sensitive hearing and complex vocalizations may have also served as early warning systems, enabling the group to react swiftly to danger. The skin impressions discovered from related hadrosaurs suggest that Parasaurolophus was covered in pebbly, textured scales, possibly with striping or muted patterns that helped it blend into its environment. Some paleontologists speculate that bright colors may have adorned the crest, particularly in males, as a way to attract mates or establish dominance within the group. This feature could have functioned much like a peacock's tail, an elaborate structure not necessary for survival, but crucial for social interaction. Parasaurolophus likely nested in communal grounds, where females laid clutches of eggs and cared for their young. Hatchlings would have been crestless at birth, the distinctive structure developing slowly as they matured. Juveniles may have communicated in higher-pitched tones, with their crests and voices deepening with age. These family bonds and herd structures may have made Parasaurolophus one of the more socially complex dinosaurs of its time. The environment in which Parasaurolophus lived was dynamic and fertile. Rivers meandered through forested floodplains, bordered by ferns, cycads, and coniferous trees. Flowering plants were beginning to spread across the landscape, and Parasaurolophus would have taken advantage of this variety, feeding on a diverse diet of leaves, twigs, and fruits. Its dental battery, hundreds of tightly packed teeth forming a grinding surface, allowed it to process tough plant material with efficiency unmatched by most animals alive today. It shared this world with a variety of other dinosaurs, including the armored Ankylosaurus, the swift Ornithomimus, and the towering Tyrannosaurus rex. Despite such intimidating company, Parasaurolophus persisted, thriving through cooperation, adaptability, and perhaps even its voice. When a predator approached, a single low call may have been enough to alert the herd, sending a ripple of motion through the group as they turned and moved away in unison. But there were more peaceful moments too. One can imagine a quiet morning along the riverbank, mist rising from the water, and a group of Parasaurolophus grazing in the dawn light. Their crests silhouetted against the horizon. They move slowly, tails swaying in rhythm, occasionally lifting their heads to call out in long, mournful tones, messages carried through the forest like the notes of an ancient symphony. The extinction of Parasaurolophus was part of the larger catastrophe that ended the age of dinosaurs. The asteroid impact 66 million years ago brought firestorms, acid rain, and long years of darkness. In such a harsh new world, the beauty and peace of creatures like Parasaurolophus could not endure. They vanished not because they failed, but because the world changed too quickly, too violently. Today, their fossils remind us of what once was, of a time when gentleness was enough to survive, when the landscape echoed not with the roars of predators, but with the music of a creature that sought only to live in harmony with its surroundings. Parasaurolophus is a symbol of ancient elegance, a creature as complex in behavior as it was in form, and one that may have brought sound and subtlety to a world often seen as brutal and wild. We are sorry Parasaurolophus went extinct, not because it ruled its environment, but because it showed us another way, a way of beauty, voice, and community. To lose such a creature is to lose not just a species, but a song in the soundtrack of life's history. Perhaps somewhere in the reeds and wetlands of Earth's deep past, their echoes still linger, waiting to be heard again.